What is up, guys? I'm your friendly neighborhood web war fanatic, and for this video we'll be going over standard 1 and standard 3 here and just comparing the two, and why even though standard 3 is way more new and standard 1 came from the core set, I still personally prefer standard 1 and I think that it's better. I'll be listing my reasons why, the pros and cons, and if you are a similar player to me, you might agree. If not, you might disagree, and that's completely okay. So yeah, let's go ahead and jump into it here. So in case you guys do not know, standard is needed for most scenarios in Mario Champions. So we have like the Rhino scenario right here pulled up. And on the main scheme stage 1A for the setup here, it says the contents of what you need to have, in the encounter deck and all that. So it says here Rhino and standard encounter sets. That'll also include expert if you want to play with expert. But basically you'll shuffle these, the standard set into the encounter deck along with all of the Rhino cards right here to create that encounter deck. So yeah, standard 1 also came in the core set, and you can see right here it says standard, and then this is 1 out of 7. So those are the 7. These are 7 cards right here that come in standard 1, and then standard 3 came from the Age of Apocalypse expansion from 2024. So about a year ago, more than a year ago now. So it says here standard 3, and then there's 8 cards in this set here. So this is 1 out of 8, and it's also 1 out of 8. So Pursue by Pass is an environment with 2 sides here. So basically, the biggest main difference between standard 1 and standard 3 is going to be the Pursue by the Pass right here. Standard 1 does not have any environment that comes into play. So basically, you shuffle these 7 cards right here into the encounter deck, and then they'll just come out as either a boost card or as an encounter card, right? So the advance comes out as a boost. It's a 0 booster, so it doesn't add any additional attack or a threat if the villain is activating. If you get the advance as an encounter card, when revealed, the villain just schemes, right? And then for standard 3 here, there's very similar cards. It's kind of like a parallel here, right? So Dark Designs is like the standard 3 version of Advance. There's 2 copies of Dark Designs here, right? You see standard 2 out of 8 and 3 out of 8 because there's 2 separate copies of this card in the standard 3 set here. So Dark Designs is when reviewed, place 1 pursuit counter on Pursue by the Pass. So that's this environment right here. Then if it has any counters on it, then the villain schemes. So very, very similar to, the Advance right here. But instead of having 0 boost icons, the Dark Design does have a boost effect. It's still 0 icons, but the effect is, after this activation resolves, place 1 pursuit counter on Pursued by the Pass. So, they're very similar. Their difficulty is also very similar. The biggest difference is, this environment right here, Pursued by Pass. So this is a permanent setup environment. So if you're playing with Standard 3, you don't shuffle this card into the encounter deck, you just have it in play, and you set it up here, and you shuffle the rest of the cards, the other 7 cards in this 8-card margin set. So 2 cards of Dark Designs, 2 cards of Sinister Strike, the Evil Alliance, Drawing Near, and Nowhere Safe. You shuffle all those cards into the encounter deck. But you put the Pursue by the Pass in play here as a permanent environment that can never get discarded. So this is just a separate environment that would just be in play. And as a force response, after you place a pursuit counter here, if the number of counters here is at least 3 more than number of players, remove each counter here, and if your Nemesis minion is in play, it activates against you. Otherwise, you flip this card over. And when you flip it over, this is the flip side of the card. Force response, after you flip to this side, you find your Nemesis minion. So whether it's in the set aside area or your discard power, like wherever it is, you reveal it. Then you search the set aside area for your Nemesis side scheme and then reveal it and shuffle your remaining set aside Nemesis set into the encounter deck and flip this card over. So basically, the way this works is that the concept of Standard 3 is that you want the effect of your Nemesis minion creeping up on you, throughout the course of the game. It's like slowly creeping up and trying to come out and, attack you. And you kind of can sense it a little bit, right? Like, that it's coming up soon, right? So let's say we're just playing in a true solo, for example, right? So if the number of counters here is at least 3 more number of players, so that would mean 4 counters on Pursued by the Pass in true solo, then your Nemesis minion will come out. If you're playing, 2 players, it's going to be 5 counters and so on. So in solo, when there's 4 counters here, your Nemesis minion will come out. So when you get cards like a Dark Designs, for example, right, the one review is you place one of those pursuit counters on that Pursuit by the Pass. So now there's going to be 1 counter out of the 4. And then if there are any counters on it, the villain will scheme. So basically, when you get this encounter card, not only does the villain scheme, but you add 1 counter on Pursuit by the Pass. And that counter does not do anything immediately, but if there are 4 counters, in true solo, then a villain will bring out the Nemesis minion. So design-wise, I actually really like that, and I thought I would like Standard 3 more than Standard 1, because Standard 1 here, the way for Nemesis to come out is to do the very famous, Shout of Past, right? So this is just a single Treachery card that's shuffled into the encounter deck. Whenever it's reviewed, you review your set aside Nemesis minion, and you put it into play engaged with you. then review your set aside nemesis side scheme, put it into play, shelf the rest of that nemesis, encounter set into the encounter deck. And if your nemesis minion does not trigger the game this way, this card will gain surge. So basically, this used to be, one of the only ways for your nemesis minion to enter play and, attack you and, just engage you and do all that stuff. And the thing with this is that a lot of people, a lot of players felt that it was very inconsistent, right? Because if you get Shadow of the Past, for example, on turn one, well, it's really, really tough because now, you're not really set up yet and you have another whole powerful, Nemesis minion engage with you. You have a Nemesis side scheme as well, so there's just a lot more stuff to deal with, which could be pretty rough, if you get on turn one. But if you can actually play the entire course of the game and never ever get your Nemesis minion if you're playing standard one, because Shadow of the Past can just always come as a boost card, and you can see here there's 2 boost icons on the card. So if it just comes out as a boost card, then you'll never ever see your Nemesis minion, even if you play a game for like, I don't know, like 5 hours, right? You could technically play like, 10 games, and of all those games, your Nemesis will never come out because Shadow of the Past, you're super unlucky, and Shadow of the Past is always coming out as a boost card. So the concept here with the Standard 3 was to make your Nemesis coming out more consistent and not as swingy, right? So it's not coming out as turn one, right? So, you add only 1 pursuit counter on pursuit bypass, so it's not necessarily coming out right away, right? You can kind of know, okay, there's 3 counters now. If I get another counter, it will come out now, and hopefully you build up a little bit more before then. So conceptually, I like that a lot more. I don't really like the swinginess of, potentially standard one being super difficult because you get, Shadow Pass on turn one, or your Nemesis never coming out throughout several games, right? That's kind of not fun. We want the Nemesis to have a high chance of coming out, but not every game, but, pretty consistently, right? And that's kind of what Standard 3 does. So I think that conceptually, I like the concept of Standard 3, and I like what it's trying to do, and I thought I would like it more. The reason why I like it less now after playing with it is mainly because of the upkeep. And there's one particular thing that really bugs me about it, and that's going to be the boost effects here. So for Dark Designs, for example, it says boost. After this activation resolves, place 1 pursuit counter on pursuit by the pass. Okay, that doesn't sound that bad, right? Because it's a 0 boost icon, right? Just with the start with the boost effect. So the villain scheme with the base stat of 2, they're only going to add 2 threats to the main, no additional, threat. And then you just put this, the 1 counter on pursuit by pass. That's completely fine if that's how it happens. The problem is in Marvel Champions, nowadays, there's so many force responses when the villain activates, and then they'll do a bunch of other things. So, for example, if they have like the Infinity Gauntlet, each time the villain activates, you'll trigger the specials of every stone in play. A lot of villains have a force response printed on their identity card. Off the top of my head, you have Venom Goblin, claim the throne. After he activates, you have to resolve, you have to move the glider counter and the resolve special there. So like that, in addition to other attachments that the villain may get, where they do other stuff after they attack or after they scheme, basically after they activate. So the thing with the Standard 3 now is that I already have like 3 or 4 or 5 triggers after the villain activates. And on top of that, I remember after the activation to also place a pursuit counter on pursuit by the pass. And while I'm dealing with this might spiral into an encounter card, that might surge into another thing, and then on top of that, I have to remember after all that to place a pursuit counter on pursuit by pass, which I may forget. And if I forget, it feels really bad because then I'm missing out on the upkeep. So if you are someone that is really good, keeping up with upkeep and managing the board state and just remembering all the different triggers and everything, this is probably fine for you, right? If you're someone like me that makes mistakes when they play and just completely forgets, oh man, I forgot to do the boost effect here because I had to resolve this and that and the other, then maybe Standard 3 may not be for you. And that's kind of the reason why it's not for me. It's not just with the Dark Designs, right? You have Evil Alliance here. It's also, the exact same thing. After this activation resolves, place 1 pursuit counter on pursuit by the past. And then you also have the same boost effect here for the nowhere safe. After activation resolves, place a pursuit counter on pursuit by the pass. So, that coming out makes it very difficult to manage the pursuit by the pass if you're already facing a scenario that has a lot of difficult stuff and a lot of like moving parts going on. If you're facing like a Rhino, for example, right? He does not have that many moving parts, so I definitely would recommend Standard 3 for Rhino. But if you want to include other Mario sets with Rhino and make him a little bit more complicated, then including Standard 3 will make that, even further more complicated. I do want to talk a little bit about the one reviewed effects here. So sometimes the Standard 3 may actually be easier than Standard 1. So let's say, for example, you're playing True Soul and you already have 3 counters on Pursuit by the Pass, and then you review the Dark Designs card right here, right? So one review, place 1 Pursuit counter on Pursuit by the Pass. So whenever you do that, you place that 4th Pursuit counter on Pursuit by the Pass. And then after you place a counter here, if the number is 3 more number of players, so winner is 4, you immediately remove each counter from that card. So now there's 0 counters here, and you flip it over to this side. So whenever that happens, whenever you finish reading your Dark Design says, then if it has any counters on it, the villain schemes. So actually, instead of the villain scheming with Dark Designs, you actually have Dark Designs trigger the Pursue by Pass instead. So your Nemesis minion doesn't come out on the same time that the villain is getting an activation. So that's actually not bad, because oftentimes, not every single time, but a lot of times the advance here, just a villain scheme activation, can actually be worse than Shadow Pass. Same with an assault, right? Sometimes the assault can end the game because the villain attacks you for lethal, or an advance can end the game because the villain schemes out and then the game just ends because the villain completed their schemes. So a lot of times Shadow Pass is actually easier to deal with because it's not game ending right away. It just puts out your Nemesis minion. So there are times where, standard 3 can actually be easier than standard 1 whenever you, get the counter here right on 4, or, if you're playing true solo, and then the villain actually does not trigger their Dark Designs, and they don't activate, they don't scheme. One other thing that I wanted to know with standard 3 is that it's definitely more refined, right? So the force response here, after you flip to this side, you find your Nemesis minion. So this find word right here, it means that if your Nemesis minion is set aside, or if it's in the encounter deck or in the encounter deck discard pile, you still find it and then you reveal it. And then you search your set aside area for your Nemesis side scheme and reveal it. So if your Nemesis side scheme has already came out because Pursued by Pass already procced, then you don't find it again because it's not from the set aside area. And then you shuffle your remaining set aside Nemesis set into your encounter deck. If you've already done that, then you won't do it again. You flip it back over to Pursued by Pass here, and basically just your Nemesis minion comes out. With Shadow the Past here, there's actually a little bit of a rough effect here that's happened to me a lot. So one review, you review your set aside Nemesis minion, and you put it into play engage with you. So basically, if your Nemesis minion has already entered play through Shadow Pass or through like something else, like with Expert 2 or through any other means, because some scenarios will actually pull out your Nemesis minion as well. So if it's already entered play and it's in the encounter deck discard pile or in the encounter deck, then you do not reveal it because it's not from the set aside area. Then it says here, you review your set aside Nemesis side scheme. So you still do that if it's still in the set aside area. If it's not, then you don't, right? But if you do, then you may get shot out of the pass. You review your set aside Nemesis side scheme and put it into play. Then you shuffle the rest of your set aside Nemesis encounter set into an encounter deck. And if your Nemesis minion does not enter the game this way, then its card will gain Surge. So if you, for example, play something like a Face the Past, that will summon your Nemesis minion into play. Let's say you defeat it, and then the next turn you get the Shadow of the Past. Well, your Nemesis minion will not enter play with Shadow Pass anymore, but your Nemesis side scheme will, because Face the Pass did not grab the side scheme and put it into play. And then, after getting that side scheme in play, Shadow Pass will surge, and you'll get another encounter card on top of that. And that could be really nasty if it surges into something that's really bad, right? So in that situation, that's probably one of the worst situations that can happen, and it actually happens quite often now because there's so many different ways for Nemesis to come out. So yeah, with that, it could be really tough. And with Pursue by the Past here, you have no chance of that happening because this won't surge, right? You find your Nemesis minion, so no matter wherever it is, you find it and you put it in play engage with you. So I do like the consistency of where you're getting your Nemesis no matter what, even if it's already come out before, it's still chasing you down. The Nemesis really wants to come out and attack you. Similar to the Dark Designs being exactly like an Advance, but with the additional, Pursuit counter. Sinister Strike here is the exact same thing as an Assault with adding that Pursuit counter, right? So Assault here says, when reviewing an Alter Ego, this card will just gain Surge. So if you get an Alter Ego, nothing bad will happen, except you just get another encounter card on top of it. But when reviewing a Hero form, the villain will attack you. So Sinister Strike, same thing when reviewed. If you're in Alter Ego, you place one counter on Pursuit by Pass. Then if it has encounters, this card will gain Surge. So basically, if it hits 4 here, then a card won't Surge. 4 in True Solo, I mean, because your Nemesis minion will come out. If it does not hit, that number for your Nemesis to come out, then Sinister Strike will just gain Surge, just adding one Pursuit counter on Pursuit by the Pass. And if this is reviewed in Hero form, you place a Pursuit counter on Pursuit by the Past. Same thing with the Dark Designs here. If there are counters, then a villain will just attack you, right? So exact same thing, just having more consistency to the Nemesis coming out, but having a little bit more upkeep as well, because you have this environment that you have to put a Pursuit counter on. I definitely don't mind Sinister Strike at all compared to the Dark Designs, because it's easier to remember to place a Pursuit counter first, and then check the counters on it and see what happens out of that, versus a boost effect where you have to remember after the activation, after other things trigger, to put a Pursuit counter on the environment there. In terms of the swinginess, Evil Alliance is kind of swingy in my opinion, right? So for example, if like on turn 1 you get like a Dark Designs with like the encounter card or the boost card, you place one Pursuit counter on Pursuit by the Pass. Then on turn 2 you could get Evil Lions as your encounter card. And it just says here, when reviewed, each Nemesis minion in play activates against you. If no minions activate this way, place 3 pursuit counters on Pursued by the Past. So this is similar to Shadow of the Past because adding 3 counters will oftentimes get your Nemesis to just come out right away, unless you have like no counters on here, or if you're playing a really high player count and you have like, you're playing 4 players, that you need 7 counters on this. So then if you only have 3 counters, the Evil Lines will only add 3 more, right? So there are times where this card can be easier than a Shadow the Past, because then if you just put 3 counters and your Nemesis does not come out, then it literally did nothing, right? That counter card kind of just you added counters, so your Nemesis is creeping up, but essentially did nothing that turn. There was no immediate impact, so in that case, it's pretty easy to deal with. The worst situation with the Evil Alliance is if you only have 1 counter on Pursuit by Pass and you get it, then it's kind of similar to almost getting the Shadow Pass like in itself, especially in True Soul. Definitely if you're at higher player counts, Evil Alliance is going to be a lot more tuned down because you need so many more counters on Pursuit by the Pass for that to trigger. And then next we compare the Nowhere is Safe here. So this card is the parallel to Caught Off Guard here. So when reviewed, discard an upgrade or support control. If no cards were discarded this way, this card will gain Surge with just 1 boost icon. And here we have no boost icons, but there is a boost effect, the same as Dark Designs and the Evil Alliance here. But the run view is essentially the same thing, right? You place a pursuit counter on that environment, Pursuit by Pass. If there are counters, you discard upgrade or support control. If it hits 4 and True Soul, then there's no more counters, so then you don't do anything else other than bring your Nemesis minion out. And then lastly, we have a Drawing Near here, and I actually really like this card. I think it's a lot easier to deal with than the Gang Up here, but there can actually be times where the Drawing Near is more difficult to deal with, right? So they took out Gang Up, and Gang Up's actually it can actually be a very tough card to deal with if you are engaged with a lot of minions and it comes out at a very bad time. Gang Up, it's really like the time where it comes out. If it comes out where you don't really have any minions, it's essentially the same as Assault, and it's not that bad. But if you have a bunch of minions, especially like an elite minions that have like Villainous, then Gang Up can be game ending or put you in a really bad situation. So Gang Up here is a treachery from Standard 1. When reviewing an Alter Ego, this card gains Surge. When reviewing a Hero form, the villain and each minion engaged with you will attack you with that 1 boost icon. So they swapped this card out here for Standard 3, and we now have Drawing Near, which I actually like a lot more. So it's an obligation, and this obligation will stay in play until it's discarded or something else gets rid of it, right? So as a forced response here for its obligation, after your turn begins, you discard the top card of your deck, and then you place 1 pursuit counter on Pursuit by the Pass for each printed resource icon on that card. So basically, when you get this obligation, your turn will begin, probably, after, at some point after you get this card, because the villain phase will end, right? And then you will discard the top card of your deck whenever your turn begins, and you place a pursuit counter on Pursuit by the Pass. Doesn't matter how many counters Pursuit by the Pass is, you always put at least 1 pursuit counter because you at least have 1, printed resource icon. If you have like a double resource or like a triple, it'll be 2 or 3, 2 or 3 pursuit counters on that environment. So it's kind of like creeping up. And the only way to get rid of this obligation on its text is through an Alter Ego action, where you discard an identity specific card from your hand to discard this card. Okay, that is really cool because this mixes in the fact that you have to be an Alter Ego to deal with Standard 3. And I like that a lot because it really deters stuff like rushing or decks that don't revolve around the Alter Ego, right? Because being able to flip down to Alter Ego safely means that you have a more balanced strategy and a more balanced deck, and you're kind of playing for everything versus just doing one particular strategy. So if you're playing a hero that has a bad time flipping down to Alter Ego, this card could actually be a huge counter and be a big game ender as well, right? So like, for example, if you're playing like the Drax hero, whenever Drax flips down to Alter Ego, he has a forced response where you have to remove all of his vengeance counters, and you can heal damage from him for each, vengeance counter removed. But Drax wants to hold on to his vengeance counters because all the cards in his kit revolve around having a lot of vengeance counters. So if you build up those counters and you have to flip down, then you lose all of it and you lose all that momentum that you just built up. But if you just leave Drawing Near in play, you'll be discarding card every single turn, and you'll be adding a pursuit counter on Pursuit by the Past, at least one every single turn as well. So basically, your Nemesis minion will either keep coming out because you'll get those pursuit counters on there, like enough counters, and then it'll keep on activating on you if you don't, do something to stop it, right? So this could be really nasty because that could really stack up throughout the course of the game where the Nemesis minion just keeps attacking you, keeps coming out after you defeat it, keeps attacking you again if it's already in play through the Pursuit by the Past environment right here, right? Because you find Nemesis minion here and then you reveal it, and you do all that stuff. So yeah, that's pretty it's a pretty fun card because then you actually have to have the alter ego, more involved in that. And if you guys know me, you guys know I love alter ego shenanigans. I love flipping down to alter ego. So this card isn't that much of a problem for me personally, just because the decks that I like to play revolve a lot around that. So if you're someone that doesn't like to flip down to alter ego, I would also, recommend not playing standard three, just because of this card here, which if you get it, it could be a very high, bad luck, getting this card and being like, okay, well, it's kind of game over because I got the alter ego card that messed up my hero's entire strategy where I want to stay up in hero form, the entire time, because you can only get rid of this if you are in alter ego through that alter ego action. The most difficult sequence for standard three, in my opinion, is let's say you have three pursuit counters on Pursue by the Pass and you're playing true solo, so you need four to pop. You just need one more for this to flip over to this side here. And then let's say the villain is attacking you, and they get Dark Designs here as a boost card. So the villain attacks you, like let's say they do like 3 damage because they have like a base attack of 3. Their boost adds no extra damage, so they attack you. But the boost effect here is after the activation resolves, you place one pursuit counter on Pursue by the Pass. So the villain punches you in the face, then you place a counter on Pursue by the Pass. So now your nemesis will come out as a part of the villain activation phase. And then let's say you get like Vulture from Spider-Man's Nemesis set, and he has Quick Strike. So Vulture would come out there. He will immediately Quick Strike because he's engaged with your hero while you're in hero form. So he'll punch you in the face, for 3. And then after the villain attacks, the villain activation phase, it goes over to the minion activation phase. So now all the minions in line will also activate, and Vulture will activate again because he's a minion that's in play when the minion activation phase begins. Because his first activation, that Quick Strike, was not his actual activation, it was just from the Quick Strike itself. So if the villain hits you for 3, Vulture will come in during the villain activation phase, hit you for 3, and he'll hit you for 3 again after that. And that is probably the worst sequence that you can get here from standard 3. But one thing to note is that can only happen if your Nemesis minion has Quick Strike. There are a fair amount of Nemesis minions that do have Quick Strike, in Marvel Champions. If your Nemesis minion does not have Quick Strike, then, that's not a big thing to worry about. Also, if you're in Alter Ego when your Nemesis minion comes out, they will scheme, but at least a Quick Strike won't trigger, and they only scheme, one time. So that's also not that bad. It's really if you're in hero form against a Quick Strike minion, and then you get this as a boost card, or you get the 4 pursuit counters as a boost effect here from a boost card like Dark Designs or Evil Lines or the Nowhere Safe, right? If any of these boost effects hit right during a villain activation, that could be a pretty tough sequence here from Standard 3. All right, that pretty much sums up my thoughts here on Standard 3 and Standard 1. Overall, I think that their difficulty is pretty much evenly matched. I'll give a slight edge to Standard 1, just a very, very slight edge because of those annoying interactions with Shadow of the Past and potentially Gang Up being really nasty. And the times where, Standard 3 can be a little bit more easy if you hit the 4 counters instead of the villain scheming with Dark Designs or attacking with Sinister Strike. There's definitely a lot of times where Standard 3 will be more difficult, right? If you get Evil Alliance out at a bad time, if you're slowly building counters and the villain is still activating through Dark Designs and Sinister Strike, and the counters just all hit at a bad time as well, that could also be very rough. If you're playing decks that cannot flip down to Alter Ego, or if that ruins your entire deck's game plan, then this is also a lot more difficult with the drawing nearer here as well. Standard 3 and Standard 1 are super duper close for me, but because of that extra upkeep that I mentioned of these boost effects here, is having an additional environment in play. If you're facing a scenario that does not have any environments already in play and you just have this one, I definitely think a Standard 3 is probably going to be better. But if you're facing a scenario that already has like 1, 2, or 3 environments in play on top of the Pursue by the Pass environment, that's just too much stuff for me personally to deal with. And for that reason, because I have been, diving into modern sets, more often as of late, I prefer Standard 1 here, just a super, simple and clean, modern set to add in the encounter deck. I know what all the effects do. There's just simple text right here, right? One of you the villain schemes. I like that. I like simplicity, and for that reason, I still prefer Standard 1 over Standard 3. Let me know down in the comments if you'd agree with that, or if you disagree with that, that's completely fine. If there's any points that I missed that you guys think, gives you a reason to really like Standard 1 or Standard 3 more, let me know down in the comments. I think it's definitely interesting to see where the community has landed on their opinion of Standard 3 after it's been out for over a year. So yeah, I hope you guys all enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys all in the next one.